What is a namespace in Python? Well, as its name implies, a namespace is a space holding some names. What names are we talking about? By names, I am referring to variables, functions, or classes we create. Now, you can think of a namespace as a container holding the names we define, where each name is associated with the namespace in which it is defined. This way, you may have the same name defined in different namespaces, and we will see this in practice in a second. The last thing I should mention before we get to work is that there are three types of names, depending on the namespace in which they are defined or held. The built-in namespace contains the built-in functions. We've seen a lot of built-in functions until now. For example, we have the len function, or range, or max, and so on. They are available whenever you want to use them, whether you are trying to access them from the Python interpreter shell or into a Python script. The global namespace contains all the variables or functions you define or import directly into your program, whereas the local namespace refers to the names you use only inside a particular function, for example. Let's better see this by creating a Python file and playing around with some variables. Let's create new file.py. Okay. By the way, you should open another terminal shell. I think this will make your life a lot easier because we are going to edit the file in the first terminal and then run the file in the second. Now, let's get into the file. New file, I for insert, and let's use a name from the built-in namespace just to prove that it is already available to you. So, print range of 10. Let's save it. And now let's run the file. Okay, so the file was successfully executed, and let's see the file. Notice that we didn't need to define the range function prior to using it because it is a built-in function and it belongs to the built-in namespace. Now let's get back into the file and try to use a non-built-in name. Okay, I for insert, let's delete the range of 10 and let's say print myvar and save the file. Now let's run it. Okay, as soon as we run it, we get an error saying that the name myvar is not defined. This is because myvar is neither part of the built-in namespace nor defined within the file, so Python doesn't know where to get it when trying to print its value. Now let's get back into the file and create the variable by assigning it a value. So let's say myvar equals 10. Let's save it and run it. This time the file is successfully executed because myvar was defined. Let's see the file. Myvar was defined before the print statement. We can say that we created myvar in the global namespace of our program. So now myvar is a global variable. Now let's change the file and move both statements inside a function, and then call that function in order to have the value printed out, like in the previous example. So let's define def myvarfunc without any parameters, and let's indent both statements to make them part of the function. So okay, also let's call the function, so myvarfunc, and let's also add another print statement to print the value of myvar times 10. Okay, so let's save the file. Let's see it. And now let's run it. Okay, so let's analyze the result. First, we got 10 printed out. That's because inside the function, we first created myvar and then used it in the print statement. We then called the function, and that's how we got 10 on the screen. But wait, shouldn't the final print statement return the value of 10 times 10, so 100? Why did we get an error saying that the name myvar is not defined? It's right there in the function, isn't it? Well, here's the catch. This time, myvar is not a global variable, which is available to use across the entire program. This time, myvar is a local variable belonging to the local namespace of that particular function. So inside function myvar_func, the variable myvar is okay to use. It is accessible and usable. But as soon as you go outside the function, myvar is no longer available. To better see this, let's edit the file again, this time creating a variable outside the function. Sorry, let's go over here. We will now insert myvar equals, let's say, 20 outside our myvar function and anywhere before the print myvar times 10 statement. Okay, let's save the file and let's run the file. This time we got the same value 10 as before by calling the function over here, and then the value 200 by printing the global variable myvar. Let's see the updated file. Okay, so by printing the global variable myvar equals 20 times 10. Makes sense, right? This example clearly separates the concepts of global namespace and local namespace. Now continuing with the same example, let's delete the final print statement first. So let's go ahead and delete this. Okay, let's also delete this. And let's switch the two statements inside the function. So instead of having myvar equals 10 over here, we will insert it somewhere over here. So myvar equals 10, and also outside the function we will define myvar again equals 20. Okay, I think this should do it. Let's save it, and now let's run the file. Okay, this time we got a different error saying that the local variable myvar was referenced before assignment. That's because Python reads the code lines in order. So if you first use the myvar variable in a statement, let's see the file again. So if you first use the variable in a statement and then create that variable, Python will be unaware that you created it when it tries to execute that statement. So when you call the function over here, Python will return the unbound local error. So this is why you should be careful when you create variables and when you decide to reference them. This rule is valid both in the global and in the local namespaces. Now let me show you how to use a global variable inside the local namespace of a function. By keeping this code as it is, we will get the same error each time we run the file. But what if you decide to use the global myvar variable inside the function? To do that, you need to use the global keyword to, let's say, import a global variable to a local namespace. So this is how you can do it. Inside the function, let me edit the file one more time. I for insert. So inside the function, before any other statement that refers to the global variable you want to use, you just type global and the name of the global variable you want to import. So myvar. Now let's run the file. Okay, you can see that now we have the global variable. Let's see the file one more time. We have the global variable used in the print statement inside the function, inside print myvar. Okay, the last thing I'll show you here is how can you use the return statements in our case. First, remember that return is used to exit a function and return something when the function is called. Let's edit our file again and return to the code from the beginning of this lecture when we got the name my var is not defined error. So let's edit this. Okay, let's delete the global statement. Let's delete the my var definition. Okay, and we had here print my var times 10. Okay, so I think this was the code. No, one more thing. We had my var defined before the print statement. So let's modify this too. So my var equals 10. Okay, I think this should do it. Now let's add a return my var statement at the end of the function and then run the file. So return my underscore var. Let's save the file and now let's run it. Notice that we still get the 10 returned by the function call over here. Let's see the file. Okay, so we still got the 10 from myvarfunc over here, but we are unable to use the myvar variable further into the program in order to have that variable available outside the function. Now you can make use of the return statement we defined and store the value returned by the function in a new variable outside the function. Then you can use the new variable in the final print statement. Let me show you what I mean. So let's get into the file and assign my new var equals my varfunc. Okay, and also replace my var with my new var. Okay, let's save it and run it. Okay, now we get the 10 from the print statement inside the function and from the function call itself, and then 100 from the print statement at the end of the file. And this is what we wanted in the first place. So this is the way you can propagate a variable from the global namespace to the local namespace. Cool. Now it's time to learn about modules and ways of importing them.